All right, going live in three, two, one. Well, this is TNZ episode. Hello, Tina. Is this episode number 13 or number 14? I forgot already.
I think it's 13.
Okay. Okay. I think you're right too. I put down 13 in the title and I thought about it for a second. I said, did I forget to change the actual number? But okay, I think you're right. It is 13. So we're up to, wow, almost, that's more than 3 months worth of shows at this point. So,
I have a question for you.
yeah.
Is 13 a lucky number for you or like an omen number? Or
Uh,
is it
I,
or is it just a number?
It's just a number. I'm more of a science based person. I mean, I don't really buy into the superstition. But when I was a kid, maybe I used to think it was something. Maybe there's something to it. But as I grew up, I was like, nah. It's just I don't look at things like that. I do have a number that did appear in my life several times, and so I would that became a number of my own. That was the number 302. So for some reason, that popped up a lot when I was younger. So that has become kind of like my number. It's almost like I call it sometimes a lucky number, even I don't believe in luck or anything like that. But it's just a number that if someone asks me for a number, I'll throw that out there. So, like to give you an example, when I lived in when I rented a room for about 13 years, the zip code was 22302. I had to wear uniforms at this place, and my number officially when I got to the uniforms ended in 302. It just kept on popping up for several times in my life. The engine and the car I built was a 302 cubic inch engine, so that also is also 302. So it just became my number after a period of time. So
That's even better than like picking a random lucky number or like just going with your jersey number in high school or whatever. Having a
uh-huh.
number you actually see and can recognize, that's way cooler than most people's lucky number.
Mm-hmm. And my dad used to do something when I was similar when I was a kid. He had this fascination with the numbers 82 and 28. Those for some reason those are the numbers that appeared for him all the time. So he had his numbers, I had my number. So
Nice. Yeah, I feel like the numbers that I remember most are like padlock numbers. So I notice like portions of those numbers around. I realize now that you're talking about this, but um lucky numbers, I don't know. I just stick with like birthday number type of things. But
I will say talking about birthdays, my oldest nephew, what I can remember his birthday very easily because it's my number 302 backwards. He was born on February the 3rd, so it's 203. So,
oh man, my friend, her birthday, she loves fours, so I always get her birthday mixed up as April 16th because it's four times four. And I always text her happy birthday on that day. She's like, it's not my birthday. And I never know what her birthday is because I have that just like burned into my brain. And I don't have the heart to tell her, like, oh, okay, well, I'll text you on your real birthday because I always forget. I think it's sometime in like July. But April 16th, I always think of Bailey and that's her birthday. And in my mind, that's her birthday. And every year she's like, that is not my birthday. I don't know where you got that. I was like, you told me. I swear you told me.
that's pretty, so her birthday is actually July. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I think it's some I don't know. It's sometime in the summer. I think it's July. But I literally don't think about her birthday until April 16th. I'm like, "Oh, it's Bailey's birthday." And then I'm like, I don't know if I should text her, but then I'm like, I don't think I'll remember in July. And even if I did, I don't remember what day of the month. I have 30 choices,
It's,
31.
well, I guess it's better than being born in February or even February 29th, huh? So you only have my best friend Trevor. We've been friends since we were 10 years old. His birthday is February the 28th, and he always used to tell me the story when we were kids that supposedly he was born just before midnight, and they had to rush down the hall to make sure his birth record was recorded before February the 29th because he was born during a leap year. So
Oh, man.
so he wouldn't have to go through the hassle of having an odd birthday.
And it is. I mean, It really would be like it'd be fun, but then it would also be annoying, and then I don't know.
Yeah.
It would be tough to explain like, oh, your birthday's on the 29th. Haha. Like it's like, yeah. But I've only had my birthday 10 times.
So so basically, if you're what was the joke? If you go by the birthdays, when by the time you're 16, you're actually only 4, I guess, because you only celebrated 4 birthdays.
Something like that.
So get back to the superstitious part there about 13. What about you? Are you superstitious about that?
No, no, not really. Although I do feel for like gambling purposes, when it's not, when there's human involvement. So if it's not random number generation, like if it's somebody's like, oh, everybody pick a number. I know you always know there's going to be people who pick 7 and 13 and 5. I think those are numbers that are really safe bets on, like for other people to do. So I feel like I leave those numbers for other people and then I'll pick a different number. You know what I'm saying? Like I let those people, like they always pick their jerseys and stuff like that, or whatever. Like a lot of people have those number as their favorite. So I'm like, oh, well, I guess nobody's going to take 4. So I'll just like I'll just pick a different number type of thing, if that makes sense.
What game are you talking about though when you're on your gambling?
I don't know, like everybody pick a number type of thing. I
Oh,
guess
okay.
gambling isn't the right thing, but whenever people are involved with a set of numbers, somebody's always going for 7 and 13 and 5. I feel like 5 is another one.
Hmm. Okay.
You know what I'm saying though? Like people always go for those ones.
Well, you know what I do when I play the lottery? I pick, and I don't know if it matters or not, but I pick you can pick up to anywhere like a couple of dozen numbers, through anywhere from like 1 through like 60 or whatever, and I'll pick numbers that are usually sequential, like at least 3 of them in a row. So I'll pick like 28, 29, and 30, and then the rest of them will be kind of random. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that helps, but I remember several years ago watching lottery numbers come up, and sometimes some of them would be sequential. So I purposely picked 3 in a row that are right next to each other. So I don't know if that helps or not, but that's how I play.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely noticed that myself in certain situations. But then I think like, well, it's just as random of a chance that it would be any other number. But I feel like we notice it because it stands out.
Hmm.
But I definitely agree with you on that for sure. That there will be like 17, 18, 4, 11, something like that, where they're next to each other. Yeah. Mm.
So yeah, you're probably right. It's probably more or less. It's still my mind said, oh look, 3 numbers in a row. So maybe that. And I only remember those situations and not the other ones where it did not happen. So my mind is just locked on the other ones. So that makes sense.
I
So.
don't know. You're the science guy. You tell me. No, I'm just kidding.
So let's look at our question from last week. We got a decent number of votes on this one, or 2 weeks ago. So we see if you could. Let me bring it up here. If you could go on a road trip, where would you go? And with 65%, that was the overwhelmingly overwhelmingly chosen over the rest. Drive through the mountains. Next, we got 19% with see the ocean. We got 6% with a landmark or historical site, and 5% with your choice, and 4% with an amusement park or theme park.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know what it is about mountains and like the rocks and things like that, but they're so pretty. Um, I was like, it's so fun to drive through that stuff, I imagine, since I've never been.
Oh,
But that would have been my pick. That would have been, no, no, no. I would pick the ocean. Yeah, I'd pick the ocean.
oh. I can't my I don't know if it counts, but my mother grew up in the mountains, the back hills of Pennsylvania, outside of a large city called Altoona, and those are really up there. I mean, the mountains in Pennsylvania, and I remember going up there, and it was just so isolated and so nice, but it was also farmland. So it was like driving through the country, but you're also in the mountains at the same time. So I like the isolation part of it. Um, the Altoona itself is not actually very isolated. It's a city, but it's almost like an abandoned city because the population. I don't know what happened several decades ago. The population has dropped substantially, so it's like a huge city with hardly anybody living there anymore. But the outskirts,
Sorry about that.
the sound like a sound like a big belch almost for a second there. The
Oh no, just motorcycles that love to drive really hard and fast
oh okay.
down this road.
The
Yeah, I would never ever burp on here. Oh my god.
no, I didn't think it was you. It just
Okay, good.
it did not sound like it came from you for sure. It just sounded like a big belch in the background. That's all. So the hills though, it's very isolated, but it's so isolated. I had an uncle who used to own a farm up there, and I remember him telling me once that you could sit on the front of his porch, and he had 90 acres of land, and the road that was in front of his house was technically like a primary road, but you could sit there all day and not see a single car go by. So and it was very very it was very unique. I spent like 3 weeks there in the middle of wintertime when I was like 19 years old, and I remember walking outside in the middle of the night. Of course, it's winter, so there are no insects or anything, and the quietness was deafening. It was so quiet. It was unbelievable how quiet it was. No sound anywhere. It's unlike in this area where I live. There's always the sound of cars going by. Something. It was just so quiet, and it was very very unique, very interesting. I'm not really. My family's kind of weird. I'm not going to say anything bad about my family, but I don't know if I want to live with my family, but I wouldn't mind living in that area, except for the amount of snow they get during the wintertime. That's the only drawback. If you don't mind, the snow rotting out your car, that is a major problem up in that part of the country. You get so much snow that cars just rust out. So
Yeah. Yeah, I love winter, so that would be fun, but winter maintenance is important with vehicles, that's for sure.
mhm.
Um
Oh,
yeah.
do you have the problem with the salt though where you are?
Oh
The salt,
yeah.
the
Yeah,
rock.
I don't think to that extreme. I mean, there's definitely cars that, I just think of being at home in Wisconsin where, everybody drives their people drive their beaters around all the time. I live in a small town. I grew up in a small town, and there was definitely rust like that. It was salt rust and stuff was a real thing, but the picture you've conjured in my mind makes me feel like it is way worse there. But yeah, salt's a real killer. It really is.
Yeah, my mother had an old Ford Escort. I think it was like an '85 Ford Escort. She lived in DC, and then when she got divorced from my dad, she moved back into the area, back up there. And she told me, I didn't get a chance to see the car, but she said after a couple of years of living there, the car was just completely rusted out. It was just not worth it. It was just completely gone by then. So not worth it at all. I don't know what she did with it. I assume she got rid of it. But yeah, it was just, and I believe it too. It's just, that's how bad it is. I mean, for me, that would be the only drawback. I'd have to have a car that I didn't care about. And I have a whole bunch of older cars that I do care about, and I wouldn't want them rusting and rotting away. That's the important thing. So
Yeah. I was told you're supposed to get a car wash once a month.
once a month.
Yep. To make sure the salt's getting washed off.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I got you. I got you. Yeah. The in DC we have a salt. When it snows, it can be really bad. Other times we'll barely get anything. I remember for like 5 years in a row we got major snow, like 5 years in a row, just constant snow. It was really annoying. And after 5 years, it just disappeared, and we hardly had any snow. And then it's like it comes and goes. We'll get winters where there's hardly anything, and we'll have other winters where it's just nonstop snowing. It's really weird. It can get annoying sometimes, but it's just got to deal with it, obviously. So
I love snow. I love winter. I really do. The only person I know that loves it as much as I do, and I don't even like it as much as, somebody who would live in the mountains and drive through the mountains. But I do love snow.
I don't mind. I like the snow. I love driving through the snow. In fact, I'm one of the only people that drives that normal speed when there's snow on the road. But that's only because the roads are treated properly. I live on a private road that's about a tenth of a mile long on a steep hill, and that since it's not treated, there's nobody I can think of unless they have a 4x4 would want to drive up and down this hill. I don't own a 4x4. It's extremely scary to drive up and down the hill I live on in the wintertime. So. I slid down that one time. I slid all the way down, and fortunately, it came to a stop just before I came to the main road. So it's pretty scary. It can be. So what I started doing after that was whenever there was a big snow, I'd just park it at the bottom of the hill, and just not worry about it. That way I wouldn't have to climb up and down the hill when the snow came to that.
That's smart, though. That is smart.
So let's. I'm going to look at these responses. I'm not sure what this first one is. Salom Khan house and its dream to meet him. I really want to meet him. Otherwise, it will be a dream forever for me. I'm not sure what that means. So, okay, I'll let that one go. Let's see. As a HVDC, okay, I'm not sure what these answers are saying here. So, let's see. Drive through the mountains. Oh, I skipped one. At my fave places with a big smiley face. That's cool. Maybe you could come back and give us an example of what those favorite places are. Drive through the mountains, drive from West Coast to East Coast on Route 66. Oh,
nice.
You ever seen the movie Cars, the animated movie?
Yes, I did. I like that movie a lot. It's very cute.
Yeah, they talk about Route 66 on that. That's a big. There's a lot of inside jokes for people like me that really like this kind of people. I don't know if you got them. Maybe you did. I'm not saying you didn't, but if you're a car person, you definitely would get a lot of the jokes that are in that cartoon and that movie. So
I'll take your word on that. I'm not exactly enough to know all the jokes.
There were two radio people in that. I don't know if you know that. Tom and Ray Mayatsi, Click and Clack, the Tappet brothers. Used to do a radio show called Car Talk from the 1970s to like the 2000s, I think.
I am familiar with Car Talk. Yep.
So they were in that one.
That's cool. Yeah, I haven't seen it for a long time, so but I am familiar with Car Talk for sure.
They became major. They became major parts of the third movie. I don't know if you saw the third movie. Not really worth it. The second and third movie weren't as good as the first one, in my opinion. So, let's see. I'm not sure if I should read this. Wow, that's pretty long. I'll just say he likes to go on a road trip to pick Billings, Montana, and he goes around about Billings, Montana. So I'm not going to read the whole thing. So if you want to come back and read that, everyone can come back and read that one. So, drive through the mountains is very nice. All drive through the mountains again. Off-roading in the mountains. Chernobyl, is that what that says?
That is what that says. That's a bold answer.
Yeah.
That is quite the adventure.
Yeah, if you could survive there very long, isn't the radioactiveness, isn't it still pretty high?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm not sure what that says. In Cristolano's house?
Cristiano's?
There's no H there, so I wasn't sure.
Oh.
Okay. Oh well. I do like driving next to the ocean for some reason. Okay.
Yeah, some people like driving with convertibles by the ocean, but I definitely respect you if you don't like driving by the ocean either.
Like the movie, as soon as you said that, it reminded me of the movie Shawshank Redemption when Andy Dufresne, Tim Robbins' character, is driving by with the top down, and Morgan Freeman is saying he imagined him driving by, and he's right next to the ocean in his convertible. So
yeah.
Driving through the mountain. Oh, Sandeep Mohanar, regular contributor. Driving through the mountains is such as the Alps or I can know what that is, but I can't.
The Pyrenees.
Pyrenees, yes. Man, honestly, I love Pyrenees, Normandy, countryside, Monte Carlo. I guess supposed to be, maybe that's Schwarzwald, jungle. Excuse me. Corsica Islands, Autobahn highway, etc. Okay.
Sandeep is got a really good outlook on these things. I really like that. I've never been to Europe. I've always just accepted the fact I'll never leave the greater United States. I just have to accept that.
Oh,
But
you and I are pretty much the same then. I've never left the country. I've driven across the country, but never actually left the country. So,
I would love to go to the places Sandeep is mentioning. So thank you, Sandeep, for instilling a sense of wanderlust in me over the Alps and Normandy countryside and Corsica Island.
and then we got Brandon P with Happiness Island. I think we read that one last time, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm really surprised you don't want to leave the country to drive on the Autobahn, though.
The Autobahn. Well, I didn't say I didn't want to leave the country. I'm sorry. I meant I'd never, like you, I'd never left the country. I wouldn't
Oh,
mind.
okay.
I wouldn't mind going, to different parts of the country. Now, the Autobahn is not as unrestricted as it used to be. It used to be like you could drive as fast as you want, but they've changed that, so there are speed limits on the Autobahn now. I don't know if you know that.
Wah, wah. Now it's just another highway.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best places you could go for a while is Montana. Montana had no speed limits on some of their interstates. So, but they've since done away with that within the past 10 years, I think. So,
Wow.
when the speed limit nationally was 55, and then they dropped that. I think that was dropped during the 1980s. Montana was known for having no speed limits for a long time, and I do believe it was primarily because they could still arrest you for driving excessively fast, but since there were no speed limits, it was harder to hold up in court. So I think they started to establish the speed limits just to say, okay, they were going beyond such and such speed, and now we can get them for that. So,
Yeah. Interesting.
and if you go to Montana, there's hardly anybody there anyway. So it's a big state with a lot of, it doesn't really matter too much. So, alrighty, well, let's go to our next question. I know we discussed this at the beginning, so why don't you go ahead and ask that?
So, my question this week is if you could own any animal, what would it be? And this relates to our video we're going to talk about today, the Tiger King documentary, which is awesome. It's so cool.
We got oh, by the way, I hate to interrupt you. Sandeep is also saying hi to us in the comments. So I said hi. So we
Hey,
can say hi back.
hey, Sandeep.
So
Glad to have you here.
saying both to hi to you and to me. So
Aw.
okay. So if you could own any animal, what would it be? Okay. And what would I guess what kind of animals should we choose on this?
Well, definitely tiger is an option
Tiger. Okay.
because the documentary is the Tiger King.
Okay.
I feel like monkey is a common animal that people own. At least I know it is in Ohio.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. There's a lot of animal owners in Ohio.
Did you know? I don't know if you know this that it's illegal starting. It began in '75. That it's illegal to bring a monkey into the United States, and that the only monkeys that you're allowed to own in the United States are ones that were actually born here. So
Interesting. No, I didn't know that.
according to my dad's wife, she said that when she was very young, I think she's in her 60s right now. I think it might be, actually, I think she's in her 70s. She told me when she was a kid that she saw there were monkeys. She lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and she said there were monkeys all over the place. Like you go to a pet store and you see monkeys. There were no regulations at the time, and she said that she believes that the reason that they put these regulations into place is because they were dying left and right. The monkeys people would get pets and they would just die, and so they started putting the regulations into place because people just didn't know how to take care of them correctly. So
Yeah, that's part of it too. And and also even if the owners know how to take care of it, there might not be vets or other people nearby to help you take care of it. Not you personally, but like help a person take care of whatever exotic pet they might have. There's in the movie they touch on a very like an incident related to exotic animals, and that is, I feel like, a good example. But that's in the movie. I don't want to like jump to that, but
Well, before we go too far, we got Param. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Sorry. He keeps on saying hello. He wants us to respond to him. So hello, hi, Param. Param Katri, if I pronounce your name right. And then Sandy also left another comment, says, "Monkey lion, bro. Only some people own them." So
I definitely think lion should be on there as either
well,
a separate one or with tiger.
yeah, let's play with the tiger. I think it'd be better.
Okay. How about tiger slash lion? I'm thinking of other big cats, but I think those are the two biggest cats.
It's spelled today. There we go. Okay. Alrighty. Give me 1 second here. I have to do one. Sorry about this. I got to upload a little file here. Got a little distracted here from my other work that's going on. And okay, I'm good. I'm back. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. Tiger, lion, monkey. Let's see. Oh, and Sandy has said we should add leopard, so we'll add leopard to that as well. So.
Yeah, I think like maybe tiger, lion, leopard, big cats or something like that. I think that'll just cover all the big cat. Like if you want to add that, if you don't want to add that.
Okay, he's also now he's acting panther and mountain lion, etc. But we'll just put. How about we put big cats? How's that?
Yeah, big cats. I know someone who owns a very old tortoise. Actually, it died.
Oh.
This was it was actually really sad. He kept it in a sandbox. He wasn't the best father to this giant tortoise, but it was huge. So I think there's a type of people that owns tortoises and animals like that, possibly. Maybe tortoise isn't the exact name.
Turtles, tortoises. You got me. Now you would give me on a word I'm having a hard time trying to spell here. TOR.
TOISE.
TOISE. Is that it? Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
What do you think? What's an exotic animal that
Is a
would
tortoise?
you call?
Oh,
sorry.
Oh, no, I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
It depends on how exotic. I feel like people have pet turtles, but when I think of an exotic turtle, I think of a turtle that's like 4 feet long. You know what I'm saying? Like some people have big turtles.
Before you go too far, Sandeep also said we should add crocodiles to that too. So there's another suggestion there. So when we get to the next one, we'll make a decision on that one. Cool. So, but getting back to your turtles, 4 feet. When I was a kid, we had box turtles that were in the woods. That were like there was a forest not directly behind my house, but near my house, and we'd walk back there, and I could find box turtles on a regular basis. You ever seen a box turtle?
Yeah. Yes, I have.
So I'd bring them back home, and my mother, I'd bring back I'd have like a box full of box turtles, and there'd be I'd have like 5 or 6 of them. My parents would say, "You have to get rid of them. There's too many of them now."
That's funny. Like we can't keep them all. Yeah. We love them, but we can't keep them all. What do you think about birds? Would you call? I mean, I definitely think macaws and other parrots are definitely exotic animals, but they're so common to where it doesn't feel exotic. You know what I'm saying?
I think birds would count if you say exotic birds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and also Sandy added wolf as well. So.
You got the keyboard. I leave that up to you.
Okay.
But
I will say when I was my sister and I, we visited. There are 2 Indian reservations in Virginia. I'm going to mispronounce one of these. I know my former bookkeeper told me I was mispronouncing them. They were called the Mattapony and the Pamunkey reservations, and they're the only 2 reservations that are left in Virginia. And when we drove to visit them, there was a huge box turtle. This thing was huge. You talk about 4 feet. This thing was probably about not that big, but it was. We thought when we came up to it, I thought it was like a rock that had fallen in the middle of the road. We had to stop to wait till it crossed the roadway because it was so slow. But that when you reminded me of that, when you said that about the big 4-foot tortoises, that reminded me of that. So,
Yeah, it's some of these like, well, turtles aren't like amphibians, but these like some of these like outdoor. I mean, they're all outdoors. Okay, how do I say that? By water. The ones that are by water and things like that are, they're just different to me for some reason. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not like
well,
aquatic typey.
you talk about
You
the
know what I'm
birds
saying?
at this way, right? The birds, is that right?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about turtles.
Oh, turtles. Oh,
No.
sorry. Okay.
No, the birds. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like people don't think of them as exotic, but they really are.
There is a
No.
problem with some birds being brought into the country. I've heard news stories on and off. I'm sure you probably heard
Yeah.
them as well. So, um, I think all exotics are banned from being imported into the country unless you have some sort of special license or something like that. As far as because they do bring certain animals in every once in a while, but you can't just bring them in with because you feel like it. So,
How about this then? Macaws slash cockatoos, maybe slash avian species.
okay.
I'm guessing. You know what I'm
How,
saying? I don't know how many
why don't we just group it
birds.
all say exotic birds? Does that
Okay.
make it?
Yeah, that makes it easier.
Yeah.
Exotic
Because
birds.
exotic. Spell it right? I think I did. Birds. There you go. Alrighty. Tortoise. You want to add turtle to that? Tortoise slash turtle, maybe?
Sure.
And we should probably leave the last one blank. Like your choice.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Because
like
that way,
comment
because I'm
below.
sure we're only selecting a certain number. So,
Yeah.
okay. And then Sandeep. Oh, Sandeep wanted me to add the toucan as well. So, well, that would be under the exotic birds.
Yeah.
So okay. So let me make sure. If you could, oops, I left a word out. Have okay. If you could have any animal, what kind? Is that how we phrased it before? If you could have any animal.
Maybe own.
Oh, and okay, yeah, it's better. Thank you. Okay. If you could own any animal, what would it be? Okay, this is big cats, monkey, tortoise slash turtle. Let me make that capital T so it'll match with the. Whoops, not that. What match with the lions and the tigers because everything else is capitalized there. Exotic birds, I'll make that capital as well. And your choice. Leave a comment. Okay, does that look
I
good?
like that. Yep. I think it looks great.
Okay, cool. There we go. Cool. All right. And we'll come back to that. So the show this week is something you suggested, and I had never heard of it before. Why don't you describe what it is?
It is the Tiger King documentary on Netflix. It is called Tiger King: Murder, Mayhem, and Madness. So, this is actually a pretty wild documentary, and a lot of people, I feel like, it caught on because this was right at the start of COVID. This dropped, and it is this wild, wild story of this guy who is like this gun loving, tiger owning. He owns like 250 tigers out in the middle of Oklahoma. Who he was arrested for a murder for hire plot against a woman who is trying to rescue big animals. So it's just this insane story of like Joe Exotic is his name, the guy, and this other woman who he hired to somebody to kill, Carol Baskin, and their the documentary talks about their issues, but then also the greater issue of owning exotic cats, like these big cats, and It is just, this guy is a real character. He's something. But it just shows like the conditions these animals are living in, and the people, the questionable people who are really attracted to owning these animals as well, like in particular big cats, because even the documentary touches on it. Like certain people own certain types of exotic animals. Like I follow a bunch of people who raise birds on Facebook just because I like looking at them. But the people who raise these birds are not at all like these exotic birds are not at all like the people who raise exotic cats. So there's definitely a difference in like personality in the exotic animal community. But these people with the exotic tigers are just, they, they got something going on with their whole team of people, their whole community of people. Like they are an interesting lot, I'll say. But this is a really cool documentary. It's funny. It does a really good job of like exposing you to like the conditions, the situation, like, and then just the profiles of these people as well. Like it goes a lot into the personalities of the people, which I really appreciate. So I liked it. What did you think, Zoom?
It was interesting. My first thought, I mean, it, I've only watched the first episode, so you've watched all of them. Is that correct?
I have watched all of them. So it's broken up into I think 8 episodes or 7. Um, so it the first episode that we watched was um an introduction. It just laid the groundwork. Um, it talked about the different organizations. There's, I would say, in the documentary, there's 3 big players in the big cat community that they focused on for this show, and it just, the first episode laid out those people, their different organizations, and what those individual people are like. So um,
Well, okay. My first question, and I don't know if this was anything you thought about, was how do these people get all this money to do this? I'm like, I'm looking at the guy who's like seems to be the primary focus, who's Joe Exotic. Is he the primary focus for the rest of the series as well?
yeah, so Joe Exotic is the Tiger King. So he is like the focus of the movie, I would say. And his like his organization, I believe it's GW,
Was it
yeah, GW Zoo in Oklahoma. So he has, I think it was 250 tigers, and he said it takes a quarter, $750,000 a year to feed just the tigers. And that blew my mind
yeah?
because for 250 tigers, that doesn't seem like a lot of money. But for 250 tigers, but $750,000, I mean, that's, I don't know. I don't know where he's getting that money either. It's mind blowing.
And also, I mean, you also have real estate tax you have to pay every year. You have to pay. I mean, the keep up the facility. It's not just that was just the food. Excluding everything else. I mean, maintenance of the facility. Paying with anybody. I'll tell you who runs a business. The one they think that's going to be real expensive is the paying your payroll. Getting the payroll out. That's, you have all those people working for you. That's another huge expense right there. So I mean, I don't know. I'm like blown away by how they're getting all this money. That's anyway. I mean, obviously they're getting it somehow, but it just always boggles my mind how people get so much money sometimes. So
Yeah, I the documentary, when it goes on, explains a little more, but there's a lot of these people I do know who are volunteering their time, or it's working on an IOU system, which is not the best. way to run your operation. But I mean, when you have to pay somebody for literal pet food, you can't really pull that money out of nowhere. You can not pay your employees, but you can't generate money out of nowhere. So it's like,
Yeah.
where is the money actually coming from? Like, you can rip people off, but you can't just make money appear out of thin air. So I
Yeah.
don't know. Ugh, it's so wild.
Well, the other things I want to say, and I don't like to get political too much, but I will say I have to get in this case. They brought up PETA, people for the ethical treatment of animals. I am firmly for ethical treatment of animals, but I don't like PETA. I think PETA is a bad organization. I'm not. There are probably some good people that work for the organization, but overall, the organization itself is not something I would ever support. I think they're bad. So, I don't. I would. Yeah. It was hard for me to support that woman because she, even though she seemed to have no, the who was the name of the woman in the episode? I forget her name now. What was her name? Do you remember?
Her name was Carol Baskin.
Okay.
She is with Big Cat Rescue, which is a nonprofit animal sanctuary. And I say that in quotes, and I agree with you completely. And I say animal sanctuary because it's very evident she's profiting off of the animals and doing basically the same thing that Joe Exotic is doing. But PETA endorses this woman, but it just kind of, with your comment there, kind of shows that if PETA's endorsing this woman who's doing the exact same thing that Joe Exotic is doing, as far as showing your animals off to the public, keeping them in cages, not giving them enough space. I mean, is that really ethical treatment of animals, or is that just you posturing yourself to, oh, we're going to side with the animal sanctuary kind of thing?
What did she have animals in cages? I don't remember seeing. Is that in this episode or is that later on maybe? Because I don't remember seeing her having animals in any cages. Did she?
They were fenced,
Okay.
so I mean, they were, if they weren't in a cage, they were in a pretty big fence and didn't have enough space to, like, they did not have what they needed in the, like they would in the wild. I
Mhm.
mean, like, that picture is like haunting. That is a bad picture. But I would say that the animal sanctuary conditions are not what they should be. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's not. Neither of them are doing the right thing here.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I gotta say, I recently on another show I do on Saturdays with a woman named Katie, we talked about a roommate from hell, and I had a roommate in a house that I owned, my first house. The guy wouldn't pay his rent, and he reminded me of Joe Exotic, but this guy, unlike Joe Exotic, who seems to be more financially secure and pays his bills, it seems like, but the person that rented the room would not pay his bills, and he was always broke. But he kind of reminds me of him in a way. So, other than that, so
You have
uh,
some interesting friends then.
I don't know if I call him a friend now, but yeah, but he was a roommate, that's for sure. But yeah, but yeah, it's just so funny to see this guy come on. It's like, oh, I know that guy. Well, no, it's not him, but close enough. But as far as the uh, what was I gonna say? Oh, as far as owning a cat, do you have you? I'm not sure if you ever do. You have cats, or have you owned a cat? I don't even know if you do. Or
I grew up with a cat, and his name was Pickles. He was an indoor outdoor cat. We had him declawed. He was a big fighter in the community. He definitely beat up other cats, but he didn't have claws, so he also came home pretty beat up sometimes.
oh, okay,
And then my mom, like, before leaving high school, my mom my sister bought a cat, and then after like 2 weeks, she realized she didn't want to own a cat. So my mom was forced to keep another cat named Titan, and my brother had a cat that my mom ended up taking on, and that cat's name is Zelda.
Zelda. Like,
Yeah.
I assume after the video game.
Yeah, she's really, really sweet. So, so yeah, we've had cats before, but certainly nothing exotic.
Okay. Well, the reason I'm bringing it up is because I've had cats since I've been about maybe 10 years old, I guess. I've always had some sort of a cat as a pet. And the one thing I've known is I've always said is I would never want to get anything bigger than a regular house cat because no matter how friendly the cat is, there's always going to be a moment where that cat, even if it's not going to be friendly, they're going to lash out once in a while, no matter what. And I would never want to be around a cat that's larger than a regular house cat because that my cats have done some serious damage to my hand, just not intentionally, just because that's because they're cats. They just once in a while they spaz out and they do whatever they want to do, and they'll bite it or scratch it, and everyone who has a cat will probably can say that. Except I will say the two cats I have right now are very timid, so they're the exact opposite. So they, they wouldn't hurt it. So far they don't seem to want to hurt anything, but the the idea of being around these cats and these people are just walking around like it's no big deal. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near them. I don't care how friendly they are. I wouldn't want to be near any of these cats, these large cats, that is. So,
No. And the wildest thing is that in Joe Exotic's case, well, and on the screen is a third character. His name was Doc Antle. So he owns an animal. It's an exotic animal zoo in like South Carolina. And their relationship to animals, those two, Doc and Joe Exotic, and Doc is not in the documentary as much. Um, they grew up with these animals. Like they had baby tigers with them in their homes, and they raised these cubs. So they have like a real intimate relationship with these animals, very personal. Like it's not just, oh, I bought this 2 year old tiger. They spent years with these baby animals. And, but like you're saying, it doesn't matter how long you spend with these cats. If your cats can spaz out, I mean, these cats can spaz out too. And arguably, one of these cats is definitely a serious predator. And I don't think it's the cats you own.
yeah. And here we go. Like, um, you talked about your cats. One of your cat being a fighter in the neighborhood. We had a cat when I was a kid that he looked like he was on steroids. I've never seen a cat like this. It was the first cat we ever
Oh,
had. He was like, when he got to be full grown, he just looked like he was muscular, big and muscular. I never saw a cat that had like, and he would go around fighting all the time. And he was definitely one of the, I don't think anyone messed with him very much, but the, the funny part is we called him Garfield, obviously after the comic strip, but I don't know if I've ever told you about this situation. When we got him, Garfield was not a popular comic strip. In fact, hardly anyone knew the comic strip Garfield existed at the time because it was pretty much brand new. So we had to
hmm.
explain to people what the name was because no one had heard of Garfield at the time. So it's kind of nowadays it's like commonplace, but back then it wasn't. So and the
Seems like we had Garfield before Garfield was cool.
and the funny part is we saw Garfield, the comic strip was in black and white, and so I didn't know he was an orange cat, and so I thought he was a gray and black tabby. So our cat was gray and black. So when we started getting the color version of Garfield, we realized, oh, Garfield is orange.
That is so funny.
So, I mean, anyway, it was just one of those funny things. In fact, have you ever heard of the cartoon Heathcliff?
Yes.
Heathcliff was more popular than Garfield at the time, so people would say, "Why didn't you call him Heathcliff?" so,
You're like, there are too many Heathcliffs in the world.
so,
We're moving on.
yeah. so, as far as these, yeah, yeah, I don't know. I can't really add too much to that, except for the fact that, yeah, when they come up and they just start lunging at, it looks like they're getting ready to lunge. I'm afraid I want to be much further away than even I wouldn't want to be with any close distance of the cage at all. So, um,
So I mean, it sounds like you're not a fan, obviously, of owning these animals. Like, would you even go into these places, or would you just not even get anywhere near?
I would go. I wouldn't mind going in them. That's fine. I just have to make sure. I would hope that the cages are secure. That's all. I wouldn't go anywhere close to the cage though, because they could reach out with their paw and their arm and try to get you. I've seen videos that are pretty gruesome where people have been mauled pretty badly by just leaning too close to a cage. So, and
Yeah.
that's something that's to be. The other thing is the I don't know how the series progresses, but the idea of the woman that was part of the what was that group she was with, Big Cat Rescue, is that right?
Yeah. Big Cat Rescue, Carol Baskin.
Yeah, she was part of she was going to Congress and trying to get legislation passed. Is that right?
Yeah, so she's like an activist, is like how she's portrayed, and like she's someone who goes and advocates like in person to politicians on behalf of these cats.
Let me see if I can bring her up here. Now, as far as the show goes, does it seem to take a side? It seemed like it was mostly pretty. There she is. It seemed to be pretty fair for the most part, but it seemed to be focusing more on Joe Exotic than anything else. I guess because he's the main focus.
I would say it's fair, but the reason it's called the Tiger King is because and not like the Tiger King and Queen, is because Joe Exotic is in prison right now. And that's because of the murder for hire plot. So he hired someone to kill Carol Baskin, and that's when it starts. That's why you hear him in jail, and when the first episode ends, they're having this interview um, over the jail phones, because the documentarian he'd been researching them for 5 years. So once Joe got to jail, it's like, okay, huge turn in the story. Now this is really how we can assemble this and run with it. So that's why it takes his perspective a little more than hers. But the story itself is more about their conflict. So she's definitely involved, and um, he I think he does have a little bit more of a focus, but only because he's the one who ended up in jail. So if she ended up in jail, I feel like they would have taken a little more of her focus.
Okay.
But he's definitely the more eccentric of the two, although Carol is, I would say, extremely eccentric herself. I think they're both very eccentric people. And Doc Antle, who's mentioned, but only to support the fact that these two are, you know, also eccentric. But you got to be really eccentric if you ride an elephant around at the zoo in your backyard, and then charge people $700 to look at animals in your backyard.
Let me ask you this: as far as the talk about the show, as far as someone like me who's never seen it or heard of this before, I guess the show, because it progresses and tells you why he's in jail as if you have as watch as the series progresses. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it goes into like detail about how he how he got started with the murder for hire plot, because right away they let you know that Joe Exotic is like, he carries guns with him. He and one of his workers made a vow that if their facility ever got raided, if their zoo ever got raided, they would shoot each other and they would kill each other, as in, we'd rather die than let the feds come in and take our animals away from us. Um, in the documentary, Joe Exotic also said, if the feds come and try to take my animals, there will be a Waco situation. And for anybody who doesn't know, what he means by that is that there was a big standoff in Waco, Texas, with federal police and a guy, over like 16 days. Or was it 6 days or 16?
I don't remember how many, but it was pretty long. So
And like a bunch of police officers died. Like a big shootout, just like a standoff for days and days. Like
No, a
Like
lot of
so,
a lot of innocent people inside also died. They were
right? Yeah,
did not
like
need. So
so. Basically, he's willing to kill anyone before, like he will not go down without a fight. So he's a very violent guy. But yeah, it's just wild. So,
okay, the
but yeah, it goes through explaining the murder for hire as well.
okay. Okay, so we don't want to jump too far ahead because we might cover that in a later episode, unless you have something to say about that, I guess. Oh,
No, just because it's not really explained here.
okay. The as far as the guns part, I'm not a fan of guns, but at the same time, when I see someone that owns a gun, I usually know that like the vast majority of people that own guns are not violent people. So I don't get afraid of people who own guns immediately. But in this case, did seem a little bit. It seemed a little scary in this situation. Like you were talking about, he would have the standoff and everything. So it's a little different in this situation. So
Yeah, I mean, it would, to my knowledge, he hasn't killed a person. But I would definitely take what he said as a violent threat. So
there it is.
maybe he hasn't acted on those violent threats, but if you threaten people to say you're going to have a standoff that could kill many people,
Yeah.
um, that doesn't really doesn't really do you any good to make me think that you're a peaceful person, a peaceful
No.
gun owning person.
No, I agree. No, he's not. I would emphasize. I don't think he's part of that category of people that I was just talking about. Like I said, most of the people that I know that own guns don't go around hurting people. And I don't know a lot of people who own guns, but I just know that there are some bad people that do, and he looks like he's part of that group as far as I can tell. So, uh, I don't.
Yeah.
Did he ever use his gun for any violent reason, or is it ever explained later on? Do you know?
I don't think not that I remember. I haven't watched this for about a year. Um, but I don't think there's any situation of him like shooting a man or anything like that. But I mean, he does. They let you know right in the beginning. I mean, he is in prison right now for hiring someone to kill another person. So
It's true.
that is the thing. So he didn't. He paid somebody to do it, but he hasn't done it himself. And no, Carol Baskin is not dead. She's alive. So it didn't go through. But
In
yeah.
case you're wondering, I don't know if you know, but the new season for this starts a little less than a month from now. So season 2 will start. I'm looking on IMDb. It says November the 17th. Is the
Oh yeah. Yep. Oh yeah. That's coincidental. They just announced that. I didn't even think about that.
yeah.
Um, but
Um,
yeah, it's. What did you think about the episode? Like, are you? What are your thoughts?
it was interesting, that's for sure. I the people that work with Joe Exotic seem very out there. Um, the people that they showed, all of them seemed like they were pretty much out. The one guy said he applied for the job through Craigslist. Uh, everybody that seemed that was working with him just was really. I mean, exotic would probably be a good way of describing them. The uh, the when it came to the other two people, they seemed to be more. I mean, I hate to say this word, but more normal, more average. Like
I hate to call them normal.
so, the Carol Baskin, is that her name? She
Yeah.
seemed to be very average. The other guy, Doc, he seems to be pretty average too. So I don't know. They didn't show very much of him. So, um, but the show overall seems interesting. Does it have a large following? I didn't even look that up.
I would say so. Just because right when COVID started and everything was shut down, um, this had just released. So everybody was locked inside and this is what everybody watched. So I feel like most people know, if they haven't seen it, they know what it is. Like it is popular. I would definitely say it's popular.
Hmm.
So if you have it, I mean, I'm glad you're watching it now because it's good stuff. I mean, I really like it.
Yeah, it definitely left some unanswered questions at the end because I had to go skim through it. Like I was telling you before we went live, I was like, wait a minute, he's in prison, but I was like, what? I had to go through from the beginning to end to just skip through and say, why was he in prison? And then I realized, okay, so it must be explained in a later episode. So that kind of threw
Yeah.
me off there. But that was the only thing I didn't realize when I first watched this. I thought this was going to be like each episode was going to be about a different tale of someone else. I didn't realize it's going to be focused on him on every episode. So that's what threw me off.
Yeah. So it's 7 episodes about like the full experience of like Joe and Carol Baskin's feud that and I will say they're employees as well. That they definitely you definitely touched on a big focus of other episodes and the whole thing itself. Like, Joe definitely does not do this on his own, and neither does Carol. They have people who are exploited, and in some cases, some are paid, but people who are exploited to run these questionable operations, and it definitely goes into detail. I mean, you saw one guy had no legs.
Yeah.
One person's arm was missing.
Well, hold on before you go too far? As far as that guy with no legs, did they ever explain why he lost his legs?
I think so. Um, yeah,
Trying
like
to,
all these. What I think one of the wildest things too is that they let you pet all these cats, and they bring them out so you can like play with them, and then you take a quick picture and then they pull them away from you really fast. So they know it's dangerous too, but they do it.
I
Yeah.
think this was the guy who was had the no leg. Anyway, well, he's in there. When I saw him, he had tattoos on his artificial legs. So, and I was like, what the heck is that? And I realized he had artificial legs. So, the one thing, how do you feel about the people? How about what they're saying about owning the animals? I mean, there is there if you own a pet of any kind and you've raised them since they're babies, you can't just toss them out into the woods. You can't expect them to survive. So there has to be they're unfortunately they're going to have to be properly cared for the rest of their lives in some way, shape, or form. So some people act like, well, just let's set them free or something. I'm not saying that that's what Carol Baskin was saying. I think she was saying something else. But there are some very naive people that would say just set them free or something. I mean, you can't just do that.
No,
They had to be
definitely
taken
not.
care of. They would die more quickly if you did it, without the proper care.
Well, I think it's irresponsible for any person, any regular individual to own an endangered animal, just in a general sense. They said at the beginning of the documentary there are more tigers in captivity in the United States alone, and we're talking private owners, than there are in the wild across the world.
Hmm.
So,
Did they say? Wow, I missed that part. Okay, I knew there were a lot, but I didn't know it was that many. Okay.
yeah. So I think it's highly irresponsible for people like Joe Exotic to own wild animals despite being, having them as babies, despite all these things. Just because you can go and pet them doesn't mean they're not going to bite your head off. There are people in this show who have been attacked by these animals and been dangerously injured. Um, but even like outside of like the physical danger, like when you have these animals, exactly what you're saying, you can't just release them, and you shouldn't just release them. You can't let them go. You're stuck with them. But also, what purpose does keeping an exotic tiger in your house, or in your yard, what does that do? You're just
Right.
keeping it away from its life that it should be having. They might be happy. These animals, I can tell you, they're not happy if they're just eating roadkill, which is literally what they're doing, which is what they say in the first episode. You know, that's not a way to raise any animal, much less an animal that should be running around Africa in the wild and like living a good life outside. You know, um, I don't endorse either of these people. at
Mhm.
all in the slightest. So,
So do you have I'm not saying you have to have one, of course, but do you have a solution on how you would deal with a situation like this?
no, I don't, because I every time you go to a zoo, I feel like it's even worse in certain ways, where it's like they have even less space than these people have. So what are you supposed to do? Send them to a zoo? You know what I mean? Like, I don't think zoos have enough space for exotic animals either. But God, the only solution would be really be to just let them go back. Take them back to Africa. But then what do you do when an animal you release a animal into a terrain and a climate that it's never been in, that's not socialized to other wild tigers? They'll just get poached over there. So, no, I don't have a solution, but it's just very sad that, is keeping them in captivity in Joe Exotic's backyard better than having it poached and its pelt taken and then it can't reproduce? I don't know. I don't know.
Mhm.
It's a sad, tricky situation. What do you think?
I don't have an answer either. I just know that, like I said, you can't just expect them to live on their own. So there has to be some sort of
Right.
care. That once they have to be cared for the rest of their lives. That's just the way it is. So
Exactly. Yeah, right. You can't release them into the wild because they don't know how to. I mean, especially not in the U.S. There's nowhere for them to go. But yeah, it's a sad thing.
there was a I don't know if you saw there was a Star Wars movie called what was the second one that Disney came out with? I forget what it's called. Uh, the Last Jedi. Is that what I think it was called? The Last Jedi. And in the movie, they have this message. They release all these animals who are being held in captivity, and the message is now they'll be free and they'll be able to live on their own. It's like, but wait a minute, they're all domesticated animals, and it's like, it's like I'm thinking everybody who watched the movies is thinking with any kind of intelligence, because the people that are reviewing it were saying the same thing. You can't do that. That's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. It has this. It's supposed to be a feel good moment, but it's like, no, you just condemned them to die. That's what you did. They're going to be dead very soon now.
Yeah, and that's like the sad reality is like they were just brought up in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they're stuck there. But the only thing you can really do is stop them. Like, once they have a baby, do something with the baby. That's the only thing I can say is a solution. If they
Kind
do
of.
have baby, you know what I mean? Like, if they have babies, you got to get them back to Africa or somewhere that isn't any of these people's presence. Don't put them around either of these people. Just don't. You're doing them a favor if you're not putting around them.
So
But
basically, how about Doc? Is he a good guy?
no. Oh
Who's Doc?
no.
Okay.
No. So where Joe Exotic is a madman, Doc is a businessman. So he's like he's got the I'd say he's more of a well-oiled machine. So there's not as much like entertainment value. He's all business, and he's actually, to me, like, where Joe Exotic is very chaotic and like a wild man, Doc is very calculated, and um he's he's scarier in my opinion, honestly.
Oh,
he's
okay.
he's less chaotic, but he said in the movie he sleeps with an AK-47 under his bed, loaded, ready to go. Both of them are very dangerous individuals, humans, but he he said also in the documentary he charges people around $600 to $700 a visit per person to do
Yeah.
this. So he's a businessman. Like, he's running a real business operation here. Joe Exotic is very reckless, as proven, and he's running a very shoddy operation. Um, but they're both doing an equal amount of damage, I would say, and they're both participating in this terrible system that is
Well,
hurting animals.
Shoddy in what way though? I'm just curious when you say shoddy because it looked like it was relatively clean. So I mean, they're
Well,
obviously. I mean,
yeah,
if the
it's
animals, let me before you say anything, the animals look like they're being taken care of to the point where they're not unhealthy. At least I could what I could see. I don't know. I haven't seen any of the later episodes. So
well, one of the questions. So they asked both Joe and Doc. They said, Doc, how much does it take for you to feed a tiger? He said it takes each tiger takes $10,000 to feed a year.
right,
So that he said Doc said we feed our tigers premium meat, premium food. They get the best everything because he's charging people a lot of money. Joe Exotic says it takes $3,000 to feed a tiger a year, and he said when there's roadkill, like if the sheriff's department gets called out for a deer that's hit, they call Joe to clean it up, and then he'll just take the deer carcass and throw it at his animals. And he, like farmers in the area, he'll let, if they have a cow that dies, they'll call Joe. He'll come up and take the cow carcass, and then he'll just throw it to his animals. He's that's why I say shoddy in that he's neglecting. If Doc is taking care of his animals, Joe Exotic is neglecting animals' health in that way, I would say,
okay,
because that's almost that's a little more than a quarter of the amount. So you know what I mean? Like you just can't give them the same level of care if you're not if the money isn't even close.
okay. I'm just curious. I was just wondering what he meant when he said shoddy. So,
Yeah,
uh,
it's well, and it goes into other stuff in the episodes too, like further down. Like you get a real good idea of like the operation that Joe Exotic is running.
okay. As far as the show it's as a whole, or this particular episode, would you recommend? It sounds like you would recommend it.
Yeah, I totally would. It is a good documentary. There's definitely there's a lot of spectacle involved. So it could probably be less episodes as far as like the real information, but these people are just so bizarre that it is a spectacle and entertaining to just watch them and listen to them and laugh at the weird things that they say, or their mannerisms are funny to laugh at, like they're weird people. But they do have like good information about this is a real deep dive into the experience of these people, their workers, and the forces at play, like between the feud between Carol and Joe, the public opinion, how they interact with the community. Like Joe has run-ins with the police, so how they deal with that. PETA's involvement, those types of things. They're very eccentric people, and it's really interesting, like on a human level, to study them. But um, part of the appeal of the documentary is definitely the spectacle of it. Um, I think it's worth watching for sure.
All right. Well, I'll say I enjoyed watching it. Um, Whether I would go out of my way to watch everything is a little questionable. I would, but I wouldn't like be anticipating the next episode is what I mean. But it's watchable. If there's something on, if it was on, I'd probably watch it. But I wouldn't go out of my way to watch it. So
Mm,
as far as rewatching it, probably not. So, but it definitely had my interest. So I would up there. I would say if someone likes this kind of show, I would say I would recommend it, but I wouldn't just recommend it to anybody. They'd have to be, you know, into that. So, uh,
interesting. I thought you would like it a lot more, but it's nice to know that there's like, because when everybody like runs to something like this is a like how during COVID everybody was like really desperate for something to watch. Um, it's just nice to hear in a way that it's not as good as everybody like kind of was treating it as. You know what I mean? Like it's nice to have an objective viewpoint there, kind of thing.
mhm,
So I respect that for sure.
yeah. So the Okay. Well, did you have anything else? We'll go ahead and wrap everything up for today. Did you have anything else you wanted to add about the show?
No, if you like the idea of watching people watching wacko people talk about big cats, then this is the right place for you.
Wacko people. So cool. All right. Well, let's take a look at our question here. Looks like we got a relatively decent response. 80 votes so far.
Oh
Uh,
wow, nice.
80 votes. 73% overwhelmingly at this point with the big cats, tigers, lions, and leopards we had put down. Next down we have 10% with monkey, 9% with your choice, 6% with tortoise and turtle, and only 3% with exotic birds, and 5 comments so far. Sandeep Mohanar says, I'll stick with dog or cat because if a tiger or bird comes to my house, I would be dead meat. LOL.
Yeah, true. So true. They're scary.
See, another creature someone might put in there, bears. Um,
Oh, that's a good one.
so the bears, I don't know if you know this, but black bears population throughout the United States they're everywhere now, and in most areas, if a black bear is seen in a neighborhood area, that the animal people will often say just don't touch it. They won't come out and deal with it. They'll just tell people to avoid it and let it go away on its own. I don't know if you've heard about that. So I found that quite interesting.
I just heard you're supposed to punch a bear in the nose if it gets close to you
Well, black bears
and
are
run.
yeah. I don't know if you could. I don't know if I'd do that. I wouldn't even be that. I wouldn't want to be that close regardless. But I've heard black bears are actually pretty timid. So
Okay, good.
so they're not like grizzly bears. They're the ones that you want to avoid. Those are the ones who will attack you. Black bears
Mm.
are like they're more like scavengers. They don't really hurt people. So I think that's the main reason why. Possum. Interesting. They eat trash and they're harmless until and you don't know they're harmless. Then they're really scary. Uh,
Nope, no, nothing that hangs out in the garbage. No.
there were possums when I a room I rented. I think I talked about I used to rent a room. I lived there for 13 years. There were possums that would hang around the house on a regular basis. So we'd see them and we just avoided them. The landlord hated them. He would say, "If you ever see one, let me know because I want to get rid of it." I said, "Okay," and I say I see them run around. I just didn't do anything. So they seem to keep to themselves. Um, Little cat for next one down. Slide one. Is that what that says? Slide one.
I don't know what that means. Yeah, that is what it says.
And finally, with Renegade MS, we got cat. Another cat image. Another cat one there. So
Definitely big cats though.
yeah, he's this one was little cat. So
I thought big cats and monkey would be a little closer just because um I think it's just easier for people to own birds and monkeys than it is for a giant cat. You just cannot have a tiger in an apartment. You just can't do that.
mhm.
But I thought they'd be a little closer, but that's really surprising. Hmm.
I. I was on this is years ago. I was on a dating service and I met a woman, but I didn't actually physically meet her. We only talked over the phone a few times, but she kept on telling me that she owned a bobcat, and the bobcat is apparently not that much bigger than a regular cat, but they're bigger. They are, but it's like a bigger version of a regular house cat almost. She seemed to like. I don't know. I didn't know that was legal, but I guess she had one. So,
Oh my god,
uh,
wild.
it turns out she was also into domination and submission and all that stuff too. So we didn't talk very much after that. So,
That makes sense. That how is it that like the cat thing really like clicked, and I'm like, okay, exact type of person that would own a bobcat.
so
That's so funny.
alrighty. Well, we'll go ahead and we'll wrap everything up. And thanks everyone for participating in the poll. We'll come back to this next show and see where it goes. And anything else you'd like to add?
Thanks for listening. Thanks for your votes.
All right. See you next time.